Welcome to yet another episode of Let's Talk Buffs. My name is Mario Vitanzi. With me, as always, is the incomparable, the venerated Zach Seegers. You can follow us on Twitter at Vitanzi Therapy, at Zach_Seegers. As always, we have to find whoever has at Zach Seegers. We got to get him kicked off of Twitter because, Zach, you're far too big a deal to have the underscore.
I know. I need to change it. I need to track down whoever the fake Zach Seegers is, and I don't know, jump him for it. The evil Zach Seegers,
Zach,
we will team up and take out the fake Zach Seegers.
We've there can only be one. Some real Highlander shit. You could also add on like NFL after your name. Like you could get rid of the underscore. If at Zach Seegers is taken, maybe you just become at Zach Seegers NFL, because like we've talked about, Zach. If you just put your regular first name in your handle, first and last name, but then you tack on NFL to the end of it, it automatically makes you an NFL expert. You don't have to go around arguing with random people on Twitter. They don't have to question your credentials. They'll simply see your handle and say, oh, shit, this guy means business. He has NFL tacked onto his handle. Shout out
Dove Kleiman.
Shout out the majority of these accounts that, they just recycle information from, actual reporters and actual people who have a job talking about sports. But I digress, Zach. Last week, it was a fun show. It was a little bit of a free-for-all because the Buffs were on a bye week. And one of the things that we talked about, the way that we're going to start this show off, is discussing how the pressure was on. We said that after that disgustingly terrible loss to Stanford, the pressure was on this team. And they were either going to crumble under the pressure or they were going to be squeezed so tightly that they would turn into diamonds. And I think we got our answers, Zach. Now, it's not necessarily black and white. It's not like the entire team crumbled. But stop me if you've heard this before. The offensive line was dreadful. And somehow, some way, Zach, honest to God, I think it's getting worse. I mean, really, since week one, we have talked about how it was a problem with TCU, how they had to get better. And week after week after week, we say the same thing, and they continue to trend in the wrong direction. And it's a real shame because the defense came to freaking play. That was probably the best defensive effort that we have seen from this team the entire season. I mean, they had 4 turnovers in the first half, correct? And they did not capitalize at all. You can't do that, man. It's like at any level, high school, college, the pros, it's absolutely ridiculous. And we talked a little bit about whether or not Shadeur would stay in our show last week. And we posed some funny questions about, maybe if he struggles a little bit, he'll want to stay at CU. And it's all like silly nonsense talk because we're almost sure that Shadeur is coming back. It's like he wants to play with his dad. I think he wants to stick around with Travis Hunter for one more year. But damn, Zach, if they're going to get him killed like that week in and week out, I mean, a lot of those plays looked like the scene from The Longest Yard where they found out that Paul Crewe was trying to throw the game and the offensive lineman just let the defense run right through him. That's how it felt a lot of the times. Like, how is it getting worse? Like, talk me down right now because we're hitting panic mode a little bit. The idea of them going to a bowl game, it's almost diminished right now. Where do you stand?
Yeah, this was one of their easiest remaining games to try to get them there. You have the what remaining game? They have one more game they'll be favored in. Arizona. They'll be favored in that game.
Maybe.
Fair, maybe. It'll be a ball game, and then every other one is against a pretty legit ranked team. Again, though, bowl game was the high water mark. It was like best case scenario. Maybe they'll be there. I don't know how optimistic I can be about this Colorado Buffalo's offensive line right now. I think they just need more guys. They got a commitment yesterday, which is a nice bonus out of JUCO. So that'll help them out some. Hopefully next year. I don't know. You get Tyler Brown next year too. That should help some, but I don't know. It doesn't look like a very well coached unit right now. And it's still going to be like Coach Prime's freshman class for 2024 isn't looking outstanding right now. You also wouldn't love to be leaning on freshman offensive linemen, and it's going to be hard to rebuild that through the transfer portal. I think it's going to be steps forward, not leaps forward. And they need to be taking leaps forward. You said it pretty much yourself. It's a terrible offensive line. It's not giving Shadeur a chance to play quarterback. It feels reminiscent of like Daniel Jones with the Giants this season, where the line's just been so bad. He just is immediately like, throw Tyrod Taylor in that mix too. Either guy back there. The moment they drop back, they've got a guy in their face. And Shadeur's improved on getting rid of the ball, on giving up on plays, and still, I was expecting UCLA to eat some because they have a top 15 draft pick coming off the edge, but it wasn't just Latu eating; it was the entire front seven.
Everybody.
It was, yeah. I don't know where you go from here. I think, because offensive lines develop slowly, it's like you need new talent. I think there's some merit to what Coach Prime said, but you can't just get it that easily. That's so much easier said than done.
I'm glad you brought that up, Zach. Do you have the clip of what Dion said about the offensive line? Let's go ahead and kick it to that real quick so we can discuss it.
In terms of the big picture, trying to keep Shadeur upright, healthy, the overall.
The big picture, you go get new linemen. That's the picture. I'm going to paint it perfectly.
Zach, I'm going to be real candid here. I have been extremely pro Dion Sanders since he stepped on campus, and I still am, and I will continue to be. But I have a real problem with this. Mostly because the moment that Dion stepped through that door, what did he tell us? He said he's bringing Louis with him, Zach. Now, you know the personnel better than I do last year, but if I'm remembering correctly, there were 3 kind of big-time offensive linemen that walked. I know 2 of them are starting elsewhere in Division I football. I think one of them is at UCLA. If I'm not mistaken, he's on the field right now. But one of them, and you'd have to help me with the name, but I know he's at Florida State starting and is probably like a late day 2, day 3 pick as it stands now. The other guys, their levels of success, it depends on where they're at, what's going on. But the point is, you can't say that you're going to bring in Louis and you're going to make all of these changes if you are not absolutely sure that the guys that you're bringing in are better than the guys that you have there. It was a mass exodus. We saw it. And you and I, Zach, said on this very show that it's okay. You're a 1-11 football team. There needs to be a mass exodus. There needs to be a lot of guys leaving because clearly the guys that were on this team were not good enough to play Division I football. It's why they were so bad. But was it an oversight to look past that and say, you know what? The offensive lineman, this Louis luggage that we thought Dion was bringing in to be on the line, it's knockoffs. He went to Chinatown and got it, baby. They gave it to him in a big trash bag. They had to hide it from the cops because it's a knockoff. They're not allowed to be selling it. So my biggest problem now with him saying this is like, Dion, I love you. I love you. Like, forever we'll love you and we'll respect the job that you have done. But you're saying that you need new linemen? You brought these linemen in. These are the linemen that you brought, the Louis luggage, right? And I just have such a problem with that, man, because we've talked a lot about on the show, too, how you need to keep in mind that these are kids. These are young, like late teens, early 20s, like still not fully developed brain kids. Like scientifically, brain is not fully developed. I think your brain's not fully developed either, Zach. You're still a child too. I mean, you stay alive.
25.
I'm like, it's okay. It's okay. Zach's brain isn't fully developed yet. But I digress. I'm getting like I gotta calm myself down a little bit. I'm getting a little bit too amped up. Do you have as much of a problem with these comments as I do? Because here's the thing, man. They obviously need new linemen. I know that. You know that. Anybody that's watched 2 minutes of CU football knows that. You think the lineman might know that? And for a guy like Dion of his stature to come out and say that publicly, it's like, dude, I get that you probably ran out of things to say about this offensive line because you were asked about them every game and they are blocking for your son. And I know it is really difficult to separate quarterback and son, but this is the situation that you're in. He shouldn't have said that. Shouldn't have done it. That's the number one thing that Dion has done that I have a big problem with.
Interesting. It didn't bother me that much because I do think it's deserved. And I think Dion's a bit of an old school coach. I don't think he has the clout of a Nick Saban, or I don't even think. I know he doesn't. Like, who does? Or even a Kirby Smart or whatever. But you look at some of those Urban Meyer, those kind of old school hardline college football coaches. Sounds like something they would say. Like, hey, you can't do it. We're going to get rid of you. We're going to move on from you. We'll ask better. Now, I think your critiques of like Dion, you brought these guys in. This is your supposed Louis luggage. They're not playing like it. You've arguably downgraded the offensive line position. We can give him credit for upgrading every other position.
Everything else, sure.
But he's downgraded the offensive line. And you know what? Those downgrades are a big glaring problem. It's not like, hey, the offensive line is not great, but things are still going well. You can address. That was kind of what our conversation the first 3 weeks. Hey, offensive line isn't playing well, but now it's.
But Shadeur was so good that he was making up for it.
Yeah, and overall, it's still a big step forward, but it's a step back on the offensive line. And offensive line is not true in the NFL too, where you're not committed to these same guys. Dion won't have the same transfer rules he had as a head coach taking over a new program. Where you can just like cut guys pretty much. Offensive line is something you've got to cultivate over a few years, and it's hard to feel great about that foundation right now. Jordan Seaton, who is reportedly CU's number one target, and understandably so, he's the number one tackle in his class. That could go a ways towards fixing that, but I'm pretty sure he's number one tackle in the 2025 class. Maybe it's 2024. Either way, you're talking about him probably not being a great offensive lineman until, I don't know, 2025, 2020, like even like a good contributor at the earliest 2025. I don't know. You've got to figure some stuff out with this line. I don't know if it's coaching. I know Nick Chesney's throwing his hat in the ring. Hey, I'm down to see it.
I would 100% be down for that. And we're going to try and get Matt McChesney on the show. I feel like we need a little bit more vigor. I feel like Matt would be with me with this offensive line now, but anyway.
He was feeling very harsh on the offensive line.
Yeah.
I had him on our Broncos postgame show, and he took some shots at the Broncos offensive line, and also mentioned, man, I can't believe it, but they can't figure this stuff up in Boulder either.
No, he's 100% right. And here's my biggest problem, Zach. Like, you're right. If we're talking short term, we're talking about this season. We've said it on the show. We know that they have exceeded expectations. We know that the Buffs have gone really above and beyond. It's like, yeah, it sucks they lost to Stanford. It sucks they lost to UCLA. It sucks that it seems like now they probably won't be in a bowl game. It's a real uphill battle. But hey, they're coming off 1-11. They're coming off 1-11. I know they've exceeded expectations so far. They put a lot of eyes nationally on this team. It's as good as you can hope for or expect in the situation we came from to where we are now. I sat right in front of this camera and said to all of these people, like, take a minute and enjoy what's happening because it's so rare. And it is. And I don't want to lose sight of that. But at some point, with all of this attention and all of this fanfare and all of this hoopla, you have to win football games. It's probably not going to be this year. Like, I'm just going to be frank. We've said it a lot. This is not the year that you're going to be like a contender, that you're going to be an actual competitor. You pray for a bowl game. That's the highest mark that you can reach for. But you build on whatever success that you have this year. But Zach, if we're talking about them being a contender next year, and as a college football contender, you have to have the quarterback and you have to have the big boys up front. They have the quarterback. And what's really disconcerting about what I'm seeing is if Shadeur wasn't as good as he is, if they didn't have as good of weapons as they have, this line would be hysterically bad. It would be laughably bad. I mean, how many of their shortcomings are hidden by Shadeur Sanders being one of the best quarterbacks in the NCAA. So this is something that obviously they have to prioritize. Obviously they have to fix. Dion's got to go out and find more Louis luggage. But more important than that, he's got to find guys that play and block together. And maybe this is the biggest problem, Zach, where it's like, this is the biggest issue. When you have an influx of new guys that have never played together, and you are going to have a lack of discipline, which we have seen consistently from this team. And you're going to see, especially a unit like an offensive line that has to be on the same page, not being on the same page. But somehow, some way, instead of trending in the right direction and getting a little bit better and building each week, they are regressing and getting worse and worse next week to week. So for next year, if they want to be contenders, and they will have a lot of the pieces, Zach. Travis Hunter is coming back. Shadeur Sanders is coming back. They're going to return a decent amount. You know that they're going to add in a transfer portal. But at the end of the day, if this line is not drastically, and I mean drastically better than it is right now, they are not going to be a contender. And then the following year, you're going to lose Shadeur. I know they landed a 4-star recruit at quarterback, but I mean, he's not going to play as a true freshman. And if he does, you certainly have to kind of squander your expectations a little bit coming from a kid like Shadeur. And so now, instead of maybe you start competing next year in 2025, that process starts looking like, well, maybe we start competing for a national championship, best case scenario, 2026, 2027. And is Dion willing to stick around that long to see this through? So it's like, this is an immediate issue. It has to get fixed. Everything that's gone on this year, great. We can all be happy-go-lucky about it, but they have to build on it. And it's just, at the end of the day, man, I don't like how Dion addressed it because he got himself in this mess. That's it.
And I agree there. I think you might be underselling the immediacy of the need too. Like, Shadeur Sanders is going to have a big decision to make that is like a what, 6 to 7 digit decision? No, 8 digit.
If they don't drastically overhaul the line, why would he stay? He's getting his shit kicked in. Did you see him at the end of the UCLA game? He could barely walk.
No, takes a bad shot to the knee or to the throwing shoulder or whatever, and it's costing him millions and millions and millions of dollars. While he could just sell high right now, especially as some of these other quarterbacks in the class are starting to become a little less appealing. We were just talking about it pre-show in regard to the Broncos draft outlook. You know, quarterback 3 is looking a lot less appealing now than it was, you know, week 2 or week 3 of the college football season. That's going to help Shadeur's stock, as we were talking about.
Huge drop off after the top 2 if Shadeur's not on that list. Big time, yeah.
Definitely. And more motivation for Shadeur to come out. And if you don't see, and what I think the declaring deadline is like February 15th normally, if he doesn't see, and then he's tight with the head coach, obviously, so he'll hear, you know, maybe the scuttlebutt about whatever transfers, whatever stuff is hush hush. If he doesn't feel confident about what the state of the offensive line is going to be in 2024, at least some legit optimism about it taking a step forward, he would be frankly wise to enter the NFL draft. It's not what CU fans want to hear, but that'd be, I think, the advisable decision at that point.
Well, maybe it would be best case scenario for Bronco fans, because if the Broncos end up picking somewhere like around 10 or like even in the early teens, maybe Shadeur slips to them, or maybe they can trade up to, you know, the top 5 and go get Shadeur wherever they think it would take to draft him.
Yeah, I agree. I think it would line up perfectly from the Broncos.
Real quick, let me ask you this hypothetical, Zach. Okay,
yeah,
we're obviously Buff fans. We're CU alumni. We want to see this program continue to excel, but we're also lifelong Bronco fans. Okay, next year, what would you rather have? Would you rather have Shadeur Sanders as the quarterback of your CU Buffaloes, or would you rather have Shadeur Sanders as the quarterback of your Denver Broncos?
Prime is not going to be in Colorado for the next decade. Definitely not the next 15 years. I'd say definitely not the next decade. You're probably hoping for 5. If you hit on the quarterback, you've solved so much for your franchise. Not everything, Justin Herbert and the Chargers are proving that. But you have solved so much for your franchise for like the next 15 years. It makes you a year in, year out competitive team that everyone has to talk about, everyone has to consider, and that's fun. I would take that. I also think Shadeur is like a perfect fit for the Sean Payton offense. I've gotten a few questions like, what quarterback can you most picture in the Sean Payton offense? And for me, it's Shadeur Sanders. I think that is a
100%.
really seamless fit. I love the oh man, I'm gonna get the source wrong. There was something, it was interviewing, I think, NFL GMs and scouts about the upcoming quarterback class. And there was one comparison between Shadeur Sanders and Geno Smith, the Seattle Seahawks version of Geno Smith, to be clear.
Yeah.
Man,
Thanks for clarifying that.
I think that's so dead on. Just like spread, like, and Geno Smith, I know, especially in Broncos country, people aren't going to be high on that name, but just because of the Russ trade and all that stuff.
But all he's done in Seattle is win, man.
He plays like Shadeur. His highlight reel from this season is going to be as good as any of the other big name quarterbacks. Watch his Browns tape from this past weekend. He's making crazy throws. He's spread it out. I'm going to beat you with my mind. I'm going to make some ballsy decisions, but they're going to be the right call. That's what I see from Shadeur. I think he's going to be Geno as good athlete, but not maybe special athlete. And I would sign up for that. I think Geno Smith or Shadeur Sanders would absolutely shred in a Sean Payton offense. So I'll take that end of the hypothetical.
I'm with you, dude. As much as I want to see Shadeur Sanders, we've seen it since Peyton Manning. And the Broncos have never drafted a franchise quarterback. I know that there are people out there, Zach, who want to say that technically they drafted John Elway and developed him. They didn't draft him. We're not working on technicalities. We're not working on, these little missing bits of information. The Denver Broncos did not draft John Elway. They were very lucky that they got to trade for John Elway. And, if you're confused about this whole story, go watch Elway to Marino. It's a fantastic documentary that enlightens you about the fact that John Elway wasn't drafted by the Denver Broncos. But I digress. It would be so nice. It would be so nice, Zach, if once the Broncos could hit on a quarterback, and if that could be a Shadeur Sanders, the fact that he was a CU kid, because, man, over the years, Zach, we have seen so few buffs in the NFL. I mean, that's why Philip Lindsay was such a big deal here in Colorado. It's like, yeah, he was a local kid. He went to high school in Colorado, and that was awesome. But it's like, for me, watching him dominate at CU and then go and dominate in the league, his first few years in the league, the way that he did, gave me like a point of pride being a buff. So for me, it's kind of twofold. It's like, we got to see Shadeur. Like, if this is his only year, Zach, and he ends up declaring, and by the grace of God, he becomes a Denver Bronco, to me, it's the best case scenario, right? And maybe we put it on hold for a year. Maybe in some sort of alternate universe or some crazy shit happens and the Denver Broncos end up with Shadeur in the 2025 draft. But that's, putting the cart before the horse a little bit. But I'm with you 100%. Would it be nice for Shadeur to stick around to CU and at CU and continue to build? Absolutely. That would be fantastic, and I would love to see that. But the good thing about having a Dion Sanders and the good thing about it being college football, it's easier to add players. It's easier to go into the portal and continue to add to your team. And if they're in a situation like Oregon is, where they go out and get a Bo Nix, who's 38 years old and he's still playing college football, he has more experience than any college football player ever, and you get him to play a season at quarterback or a season or two, then that's fine. And it's easier. It's so much easier to replace a quarterback in college than it is the pros. Now, is it easy to replace a Drake May or a Caleb Williams? No, not necessarily, but it is easier to find a quarterback, maybe not off the street, but in the transfer portal and say, all right, well, he's not Shadeur, but he's still pretty good. He's got some experience. We're just going to plug him in. We're going to shore up the offensive line because Lord knows that's a problem. We're going to bring in some more weapons. I'm Dion Sanders, and so our secondary is going to be really good. And I can't wait to drive 20 minutes down the street to go see my son play at Mile High Stadium. So absolutely 100% unequivocally with you that I would rather see Shadeur Sanders in a Denver Broncos jersey. If you're watching this and you want to give your 2 cents of who you would rather, or who you would want Shadeur to be with more next year, the CU Buffs, the Denver Broncos, comment below or make sure that you reach out to Zach and I on Twitter, again, at Zach_Seegers, at Vitanzi Therapy. Tell us we're right. Tell us we're wrong. Tell us we're geniuses. Tell us we're stupid. It doesn't really matter. Like, you will never ruin our self-confidence. Zach and I are so unbelievably high on ourselves and on each other. Nothing can break our stride.
Nothing. We're invincible. Invincible, not invincible. Invincible. We're
invincible, invincible, don't matter. And yeah, Zach mutes his mic every show, but that's okay. He just wants you all to know that he is human, so you don't feel so bad about yourselves.
I too am fallible.
No, it's not fallible. You're just, sometimes you have to prove that you can bleed to make people feel better about themselves.
Yeah, prove I'm not a total god.
Exactly. You're the like a lowercase g instead. We don't want to get blasphemous. Wow, we've really derailed. Anyway, another thing that I wanted to ask you about, Zach, and this is, obviously in a little bit more of a serious tone. Apparently a lot of jewelry and expensive items were stolen out of the CU locker room while they were at UCLA. I want to talk a little bit about this, and then we can start to, put a bow on this. This is messed up, man. This is, far be it for me to say, like, this is not okay. But how does this happen? It's not like a college football locker room is a terribly easy place to break into. This had to be somebody on the inside. This had to be someone involved with security or someone involved with the campus or the football team in some way, shape, or form who knows that these kids are walking in there with tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of jewelry. Talk me through this, man. Like, how does something like this happen? Like, how does UCLA allow something like this to happen? This is freaking egregious.
Security's bad at these events. I think that's the answer. I think we've all seen like viral videos about like sneaking into the Super Bowl or, whatever. And those are Super Bowl events. What I've learned kind of covering this as media is most cases, I think if you wanted to, do something wrong and, illegal and get behind the scenes and we're really motivated to do so, I think it wouldn't be that difficult to sneak in. And I think there's plenty of social media influencers out there proving that notion. I will not be giving out any tips. I enjoy being credentialed, but I'd like to answer the question how. I don't think it'd be that hard to pretend to be some sort of food worker or other type of service employee that's working at the stadium, a media member, whatever. And a lot of those employees will use a garbage person, a garbage worker. They will all use the same entrance and exit as the players, or at least an entrance or an exit that will get them into the tunnels where that will lead you to these locker rooms and whatnot. And yeah, I kind of think it's that simple. They were playing the game. You had someone sneak in there, maybe someone that was already employed, just kind of flash or whatever, get in, steal it and go. I don't know if this is a UCLA Rose Bowl problem. I kind of don't think it is. I think it's whoever did it problem, and I think they'll definitely be caught. Like, what got stolen from Tom Brady? Was it his jersey or was it a football or whatever from his locker after the Super Bowl? It was something
like that, yeah. I think his jersey.
Ring or whatever. Yeah, I think it was his jersey.
And then someone tried to sell it, and they're like, "So you stole it?"
Yeah, they had it on video and everything too. Like,
it was something like really stupid that got him caught.
Yes, like, so
Zach, it sounds like you just wrote the script for Ocean's 14. Can I star in this movie? Like, who can I play?
Of course. And it wouldn't even have to be Ocean's 14. It'd be like Ocean's 3 with like a laptop. Like, I don't think it'll be that difficult. You don't need the special gymnast little guy that can fit inside a food cart. You don't need any of that.
So I'll be the man in the van. I'll just
Yeah,
keep
this
growing
isn't
out my
easy.
beard, look like the guy that's in the van. I got the headset on. It's like, all right, yeah, they're playing the game. Yeah, the game's going on. No, yeah, there's no one there. Yeah, I'm looking at the cameras because we hacked them earlier in this movie inexplicably. And yep, okay, you're all clear. Okay, and yeah, end of movie, right?
Yeah, it'll. I don't know.
If that doesn't win an Academy Award, man, I don't know what will. It's like you've got theft, you've got college football, you've got the Prime effect. It's like this movie would have everything. I think we need to get to work on a script.
It would. We will get to it. It's got Hollywood. It's got everything. It's perfect.
There you go. Sorry, not to belittle the situation. It's of course terrible. And honestly, and if you're one of these people, because I have seen this, Zach, if you're one of those people who has the audacity to say, well, maybe just don't wear it. Maybe just don't wear it. It's like, no. They got robbed of their own personal property. It doesn't matter if it's a necklace or their clothing or their phones or anything. Somebody walked in and stole their personal affairs. And I think people are disillusioned to what happens, Zach, because it's jewelry. It's not a necessity, it's not something that you have to have. And so maybe there are people out there who don't see it as big a deal as it is, because they're like, oh, well, they're college students. They shouldn't have that stuff anyway. Why do you need to wear that? It's like, who freaking cares? They're kids. They got NIL money. Like, let them go ahead and walk in there. It's like, I do shows all the time with freaking jewelry. Like, you think that I would be psyched about getting something like this stolen? I mean, it's fake, so it doesn't really matter. But I got plenty of bling. That doesn't mean that I want someone coming into my house and taking it. It's like you could say the same thing about me, Zach, where I wear this gaudy shit during some of our shows. It's like, oh, well, Mario, you shouldn't have been wearing it. It's like, no, you shouldn't have fucking robbed me.
Yeah, no, it's. I think the only people that can be making that argument are like the most devout Buddhists who don't have any like worldly possessions or any. If that's the way you want to live your life, but I think, and again, more power to those people. But I don't know, not to get very philosophical, but the lines on what's a necessity and what's not are so arbitrary. I think most anyone watching this show is probably pretty blessed in their lives and have more than enough to eat, and some.
I mean, you have a computer and internet access, so that's good.
Yeah, you're probably above the line of necessity, I guess. Most people making these critiques of players on social media probably aren't living at the bare baseline level of like, I have my necessities fulfilled. They probably have a little more than their necessities fulfilled, as they should, and as these players should. It's not a problem. They are working hard for it. I cannot imagine like if anyone thinking they're not working hard for it, try being a student athlete and a college student at the same time. Like that is legitimately very, very taxing work, very time consumptive. Good luck to them. I don't know. I think they're going to catch these people. I think they'll get their jewelry back, or at least financial compensation or whatever for it. This is the easy part of the crime to get away with is getting into the stadium, stealing stuff. Like there's so many cameras there. They will be caught and brought to justice pretty swiftly, I imagine.
I would hope so, man. And honestly, I hope that the stuff that they stole is worth enough money to actually put these dickheads away for a really long time. Just as like a comeuppance. I know you shouldn't wish that on some people, but it's like, what are you thinking? Use your brain. I know maybe sometimes times are tough. I know sometimes there are issues, but Lord have mercy. Like, you're going to walk in there and steal from college kids. You have the audacity to go in and do that and think that you're in the right or justified. Go lock yourself up.
Yeah, I'd be with you. It doesn't seem like a very noble crime.
No. Anyway, let's get to our favorite part of the show and predict what's going to happen next week. I mean, this has been a bit of a fool's errand as of late, Zach, because it's like, aside from the Stanford game and I guess the ASU game, but they did win that one. It's like we kind of know what's happening. We kind of know what's coming. Neither of us thought that they were going to beat UCLA. I'm pretty sure neither of us think that they're going to beat Oregon State, and we'll take this 1 week at a time. I'm not feeling great about the Arizona game now after the way that Arizona's been playing, and I think we close with Utah, and I don't feel too great about that. Oh yeah, Washington State and then Utah. Yeah, I'm not feeling great about any of these games, but let's take it week to week. I'm not going to say anything groundbreaking here, Zach. The offensive line needs to block, and if the offensive line continues with where they're at, this offense, despite having so many weapons, despite having one of the best college football quarterbacks, is going to continue to look anemic. This Oregon State team is good. They're aggressive. They are capable of punching you in the mouth. And I think if CU does not set the tone early and throw the first punch, that it's going to be a long, long night. And once again, Zach, you probably have a later bedtime. I mean, you're a spry young chicken. I'm a fairly older than you. I'm going to try my hardest to stay up for that whole game, but I really hope it's not some sort of disaster. And I got to tell you, I'm getting real sick of staying up until midnight watching college football.
Yeah, I think it might be a disaster. I will say, CU should have a chance in all these games. They have skill position talent. They have, I'm pretty sure, the best quarterback the rest of the way, right? Let me just look at it. I know we just went through it, but yeah, they've got.
I mean, I would say so, yeah.
Oh, Cam Ward's pretty good. I mean, but
Cam Ward is a very good college football quarterback. He'll be a late round draft pick somewhere, maybe bounce around the NFL.
Yeah. They've got a very good quarterback. They have good skill position talent. I do still believe in this coaching staff. They can, snake bite someone. And I will stand by what I said a few weeks back. Half of it's come true already. But we were looking at, hey, could the Buffs be, bowl eligible? And I said, it's very likely, knowing the nature of the Pac-12, one of these games we're writing as an obvious win ends up being a loss, and one of these games we're writing off as an obvious loss ends up being a win, just because Pac-12 teams are weird and funky. We've had the unpredicted loss part. I think who knows? I don't believe a ton in Oregon State. I don't believe a ton in Washington State. I do think I definitely don't believe in Arizona. I don't think they'll make a bowl game. I think 5-7 is the most likely outcome at this point. But I don't know. I wouldn't count it out yet. I do think they could get off the mat. I don't know. It could happen this week too. DJ Uiagalelei has been playing a lot better this year. But Colorado's defense is coming off their best game of the season, and I don't trust Oregon State's offense as much as I do UCLA's with Chip Kelly. And I mean, I guess they did have the backup quarterbacks, but I think they could have more takeaways. This isn't a very opportunistic defense. I will take Oregon State in this one. I'll say, Beavers 31-27. But I don't know. I think CU could make some noise in this one. They should have been close with UCLA if they could have just finished in the red zone.
Yeah. So the line right now is 13.5, Oregon State. You think CU covers?
I do. I don't know. It could go either way for CU every week. I'm staying away from these lines. But I don't think Oregon State's got 2 touchdowns of talent on CU. CU's a very flawed team, and they can get blown out any week, but I think they can upset anyone any week either. I would tend to lean on the side of CU covering that line.
I'm inclined to agree with you. I'm always going to see life through black and gold glasses. I mean, I'm always going to give them the benefit of the doubt. I don't know if they put 27 on Oregon State unless something drastically changes. But I will say, man, after the last couple of Broncos games, it's amazing how your attitude can change week to week. I mean, I really thought after that Thursday night game against Kansas City, I'm thinking to myself, we might not win another one the rest of the year. The way that the team was looking, the way that they were playing, it was like, yeah, the defense looked a little bit better in that game. but the offense was completely anemic. It's like as soon as the defense figures it out, the offense forgets how to play. And then the Green Bay game, it's like, oh, okay, well, it's a win, but the Packers aren't any good. Jordan Love looks terrible, and it took a last-second field goal to beat them. Now we just broke the streak against the Chiefs. And we just beat that team 24-9. And we kept Patrick Mahomes and his Kermit sounding ass out of the end zone for one of the first times in his entire career. And now all of a sudden, Zach, I'm back, baby. I am so hyped. I'm like, you know what? The Broncos might only lose 2-3 games max the rest of the way, and they're going to be a playoff team. And it's only because football is fickle, man. Football fans are fickle. People who cover football are fickle. And we as fans want something to believe in, right? Like I yearn for and I desire a reason to believe that my team is going to win. That's what makes us fans. That's what makes sports fun, is being able to talk yourself into thinking that your team is going to win week in and week out. So now, because I'm rejuvenated in my belief in football and the Denver Broncos, and I'm not going to pick CU to win, but they got to show me something first. I'm saying, like, it sounds like doom and gloom now, but if they figure it out, man, like, they can sway us. We're basing everything off of what we have seen so far, right? We're being pragmatic, and we have not been given a reason to believe that they are going to a bowl game. How about we just see that, Zach? I'm not even necessarily asking for a win, but if you're on the offensive line, freaking block somebody. If you're on the defense, make some opportunistic plays. If you're a wide receiver, make something happen. If you're Shadeur, damn, dude, just keep being you, because you are damn near perfect. But give us a reason to believe again. Take us back to when we were 3-0 and we beat TCU and nobody thought that we would. And we beat Nebraska and it felt so good because they pronounced their school. No, I'm sorry. They spelled knowledge with an N. I almost butchered that. It was really close. Just thinking about Nebraska and it warped my brain. Take us back to the Colorado State game where we won in overtime, and it was one of the most exciting Rocky Mountain showdowns we've ever seen. Give us a reason to believe, Buffs, for the love of God, because it is getting exhausting having to watch you every week and completely piss away the talent that is Shadeur Sanders. I think the Buffs cover. I think that they lose. I just want to see some fireworks, Zach. I want to see a reason that they, like, make us believe. Give Zach and I a reason to pick y'all the rest of the way. Is that too much to ask?
Yeah, get off the mat. This is a big get off the mat game for CU. It's really been rough since the first 3 weeks of the season. They had a good half against USC. Even the Arizona State game, I think, was fairly disappointing. It's been a slog. It's been a slog outside of those first 3 weeks. I'm with you. I keep thinking that maybe this is the week CU gets off the mat, and they keep proving me wrong. So I'm not banking on it until we see it.
Yep, I'm with you. All right, thank you all so much for watching this edition of Let's Talk Buffs. As I've said, my name is Mario Batanzi. That is Zach Seegers right there. We bring you Let's Talk Buffs every single week. And once the basketball season starts, we will be talking Buffs basketball as well, both men's and women's. Again, thank you so much for joining us. I think a third time, you can follow us on Twitter at Batanzi Therapy, at Zach_Seegers. Go ahead and drop a comment below. Make sure that you subscribe to whatever channel you're watching this on, whether it's the Let's Talk Broncos or it's That's Good Broncos, whatever it is, wherever you're watching, make sure that you subscribe. If you ever have any questions or something that you want to say to Zach and I, we are very accessible. I know Zach likes to paint himself as a know-it-all and thinks that he knows more than everybody else, but I promise you, he's a very down-to-earth, approachable guy, super nice. If you want to cop some swags, maybe a Let's Talk Buff shirt, you can see like down in this little logo right here. Look at that. Look at that thing. You designed that, didn't you, Zach?
I hired a very good graphic designer to design it for me.
So basically, Zach designed it. It's his brainchild. Zach came up with it. Zach is very talented. And we've got that gorgeous logo on a shirt. I think black and charcoal. I think it comes in white as well. You can get the link down below this video. And for a limited time only, Zach, I think I'm going to leave this up for another week. If you type in the code SEXYPERNA, that's SEXYPERNA, as in Brandon Perna, all caps, you get 15% off of your entire order at that store. So if you've been waiting, have you been waiting to cop that Let's Talk Buff shirt? Have you been waiting until it's just a little bit cheaper? Well, now you can get 15% off of that, off of the, the sunglass and hat Dion shirt and a bunch of other cool shit that I have in that store. 15% off with the code SEXYPERNA. We will be back with you next week. Maybe we'll have a guest. Maybe we won't. Maybe it'll just be Zach and I talking shit. Hopefully we have something really compelling to talk about, because all we have this weekend, Zach, is the Buffs. Broncos are on a bye week, and so CU football is all that we have to root for. That and our arbitrary fantasy teams that nobody cares about aside from ourselves. One last thing, Zach. Are they going to give us something to believe in?
I don't know. I think not more than they have these past 5 weeks would be my prediction. I think, and there has been stuff to believe in these past 5 weeks, like, hey, Shadeur, hey, the offense, things we've been talking about on this show. I think it's going to be more of the same, unfortunately. I really hope I'm wrong, but like we were just saying, I'm not going to bank on a change until we start seeing signs of one.
I'm with you. I'm a show me guy. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. We love you all. Thank you all so much. And we end the show, as always, with Sko Buffs.